All right. People are slowly making their way back in. Full tummies. Okay. It was remiss of me not to mention that there is a frame to get photos with. So feel free to frame yourself and others and share it. So as an opening offering, I've got a question. Can someone name not just who the last session was brought to us by, but 3 of the categories it was brought to us by? Anyone? God, you're asleep. Not even. Who the last session was brought to us by, and 3 of the categories that I clearly specify. Oh, is that an arm? No. Oh, you are? Yeah, come on. Okay, this is going nowhere. Okay. I thought you guys would have been all over it. How did I wrap the last session up? Oh no, it was the one before. Actually, no wonder no one's answering. All right. No. Okay, hands down. I totally screwed that up. Because it wasn't the last session, it was the session before that. Who was that brought by? Yeah. The letter C. And can you name 3 of the categories that it was brought to us by? Hang on, put it into the mic, please. Otherwise, this is going nowhere. See, look, no one, you didn't remember. There was, okay, over here. Who was it brought to us by?
Curiosity.
Yes.
Collaboration.
Collaboration, yes.
Community.
Community, yes. You get a photo with me. I don't know whether that's valuable or not, but you get it anyway. That's a bit of a rough deal, a very bum deal, but there you go, the first one. Stick your head out. Break the 4th wall, there you go, fantastic. Thank you for answering my horrendously out of order question. But you can use that during the day. So we're going to move on to our next session, but I just wanted to make a point that if you were in one of the talks earlier, it was brought to us by the letter L. Was anyone in that one? Yes, and those letters were law, look, listen, learn, love, and lead. Now, the good thing to remember about all of this, you mightn't have gone to that talk, but there is no frustration at this conference because for all the sessions you couldn't go to, you can watch them online in a week or so once they've all been transcribed, and they're going to go up onto the website. So if you weren't at the session brought to you by L, you can listen to it and there's an L as well. You can listen to it in your own time. So I hope you enjoyed lunch. Big thanks to the community that gathered up in room 9 over lunch. That was a spin-off from yesterday's First Nations gathering, and there was some more great conversation continued because that was the feeling. We wanted more time. So thank you to everyone involved and for coming up there during lunch. So our next session, we have Environment and Ag Tech for Future Farming and Landscape Restoration. For this panel discussion, it's going to be facilitated by James Walker. He's the CEO of AgriHive and Landcare Australia Board Director. Welcome, James. And on the panel with him, we have Andrew Walker, the CEO and co-founder of Airseed Technologies. We have Darryl Lyons, the CEO and founder of Rainstick. And last but not least, we have Anna Hooper, who's a Landcare Australia Board Director. So please welcome our panel. There was a moment there where I thought they were already on the bus, but alas, they weren't. How many are there? Are there 4? Yeah, there's your mic here. I'll put that on your chair. Drop, drop, drop. I'll get that out of your way.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this session. I just want to set the scene a little bit. So how has Landcare changed from inception in 1989? Much of the fundamentals are the same and has been for centuries. However, technology in recent years have made scaling and enablement of our shared mission extremely achievable. But how do we assemble the right technologies and generate real outcomes from these technologies available? How do we coordinate for impact, and what are the possibilities? This panel we've got for you today will tackle the key issues on how we can use technologies to help with more productive and profitable food and fibre production. With 50 million more people inhabiting the world this year, farmers are charged with managing all these variables to produce for the demand being created. To put all of that into context, every 7 minutes, the equivalent of this room extra inhabits this planet. So that's every 7 minutes. So we've assembled a great panel here. James Walker, I'm from Longreach. I'm a director of Landcare, a farmer. We've got 20,000 acres out there. If you'd like to see the activities we get up to, I think we've got some local farmers here, Georgia and Toby Whip, and you can follow Life at Leander, and it gives you a great snapshot of what we get up to in Longreach. But let's just get to know our panellists and set the playing field for today's session. I'll start with Anna just to give a bit of an introduction, but Anna's a board member with me, and just love for you to give an introduction about you and viticulture. And I'll just join you all.
Thanks, James. I'm a director of Landcare Australia with James. I also work for the peak body for the grape and wine sector, Australian Grape and Wine, in policy and advocacy at the moment, based in Adelaide. My background is in winemaking and viticulture in the southeast of South Australia, and during my time there I was also involved in natural resource management and did a little bit of hands-on conservation work as well.
Yeah, great, Anna. And so what sort of technologies are you using in viticulture, and what challenges are you facing?
So viticulture has been slow to adopt some of the same automated equipment type technologies that we've seen in other crop sectors, partially due to the fact that it's very costly, and also to do with the fact that the terrain in vineyards is not always even. There's a few challenges like that, but we're really starting to see some new types of equipment come out, such as automated tractors that can do a variety of different things, like trimming, spraying, etc. We're seeing UVC for fungicide as an alternative to chemicals, and also biologicals are starting to emerge, early days however. And down the track, we're likely to see gene-edited grape varieties which are resistant to disease. So there's some exciting stuff on the horizon. But when I was thinking about this, I was sort of like, not much has really happened apart from these things that are coming, but not really widely adopted yet. And then I suddenly thought, actually, we've been doing soil monitoring for ages. Soil sensors, localised weather stations, insect sentinels, remote sensing and yield sensors on tractors and things like that. So all this stuff has been around for a while. So there's a lot of data collected in vineyards. But that's probably it for now.
And Anna, you're a pilot as well, so have you been using many drones, or are you still up in the air flying?
I've never flown a drone before, so no. I have used the plane for monitoring, looking to see what people's vineyards are looking like, but don't tell them that.
Okay, all right. Sounds good. We might skip to Daryl. So, Daryl, you're Rainstick. That's your company that you founded. Just give us a bit of an intro and just tell us about the challenges you're trying to solve with Rainstick, and just a little bit of background would be great.
Yeah, so background, I guess, third generation in producer, ran away from farm because it was a bit too much hard work, but always kind of got roped into mum and dad's cattle property on holidays to do free labour. And that started my journey into ag tech. I was like, there's got to be an easier way than going out and having to scrub these, water troughs or do whatever. So yeah, I started ag tech company, my first one, probably 9 years ago, when there was 20 companies on the map. Now progressed to Rainstick being my third one. And a lot of lessons and hard work along there, and there's probably about 700 ag tech companies in Australia now. But one of the key things I've kind of noticed on that journey is really around the steady pace or slow pace of producers adopting technology. And that's come from a few big lessons are really around people focusing on the technology and getting a bit too carried away with that and not really addressing has to be a clear ROI, clear cost benefit, and make a big difference. So setting up Rainstick, we basically went out to solve that. So everything's got to have an ROI, has to be a new, profitable and sustainable. And I think that's the future of where ag tech and sustainable tech is going and need to, where it actually makes a big difference.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is sort of where we converge on the aspects of enterprise technology, which is ag tech, and production and empowering profitability, but also environmental technology where you get the environmental outcomes as well. So I might talk to you now, Andy. Thanks very much, Daryl. So, Andy, you're at, how do you pronounce it? Grovia? Yep. And just want to tell us a little bit about Grovia and your journey to being on stage this afternoon.
Yeah, sure. So as a way of background, I'm an engineer, and I come from a very different world than Envirotech and AgTech. Initially started my career in aerospace and automotive industries. And my career's sort of been heavily involved in business. And some 9 years ago, I was lucky enough to be able to take a year out and figure out what I was going to do next. And two of my passions are technology, obviously, being an engineer, but also the environment. So in 2018, I founded Airseed Technologies, which was a company that basically used, our mission statement basically is how to accelerate the restoration or the reversal of biodiversity loss using science, technology, and people. And so we developed hardware, we developed software, and we also developed biotechnology for undertaking large-scale planting operations. And that process was heavy R&D for the first sort of 3.5 years. And then we launched into two main sectors, environmental markets and mine site rehabilitation. And what we've experienced over the course of the last few years is an awful lot of inertia in the environmental sector. And from that challenge we developed Grovia to sort of solve some of the issues that we were seeing out there in the market.
So tell us a little bit more about that. So Grovia, is it a point of verification for data, or how do you explain it to the audience here today?
Yeah,
how it works.
So I think the challenge broadly, I would put it down to two things, and this is outside of technology. I would put it down to complexity of markets, but also trust of participation. So Grovia is developed to really put, it's really a landowner first model using technology. So how do we scale markets? We believe we scale markets through the additionality or the complementary addition of natural capital on farm. And to do that, Grovia is essentially an end-to-end solution where we'll hold a landowner, a landcare, a farmer, producer's hand from the time of the thinking about doing environmental plantings all the way through to them managing and generating credits and delivering a positive environmental outcome.
So do you manage capital as part of that and deploy it, or do you raise, or how do you sort of make that marketplace work?
No, our model is very different. We're not, I think this is part of the trust issue as well. the way that we've seen the interaction with the markets today. We've talked about it before, and the challenges have been raised today multiple times through different panels. And I think the developer-led model, or the carbon third-party model of land acquisition and changing the use case of that land away from agricultural practice to maybe fence-to-fence planting is detrimental to both society and community. Our model is very much around supporting landowners to make the right decisions, have the tools at their disposal to do everything from feasibility to design optimization to actually what method of planting should I do, where should I source my seeds, and then how do I monitor for compliance, and how do I report against those compliance requirements. We don't take a return through carbon credits. We are basically a subscription model. So you pay for the service, and that's it.
Yep. Yeah, fantastic. So no hardware, it's all software.
It's all software.
Yep. Yeah.
Yep.
And what about, Daryl, yours in comparison, your solution? Where do you sort of play in that space of sort of providing, I suppose, your business model in terms of how you get it out for use?
I'll just provide some background of what Rainstick is. So I've seen the effect of my grandfather losing his farm, mum and dad being affected by multiple droughts and really having a profound effect. When I really looked at that and looked at their practices, in Australia we haven't really adopted any Aboriginal traditional knowledge systems to actually help us. And as we get into this changing environment, so I'm a proud Marawali man, so we're from just, I guess, west of you in Channel Country and Diamantina. So my mob are a rainmaking tribe. So I've got another C word for Costa. We used a chugra, which was our rain stick to influence in thunderstorms to grow our grain for millennia. So what we've done is set out and we've developed a technology that mimics the effect. So when you have storm activity, it creates electric fields in the air. And when you do that, it creates frequencies. And it's our hypothesis that plants have evolved to communicate through frequencies. So we create electric fields and deliver frequencies into seeds to actually make them grow bigger and faster. And we're mapping that out. So we have a kind of hardware, software, and building an AI platform, which is to create recipes. So for instance, we're also doing work in native seeds to break dormancy. So we're having a very good effect, I guess, where we treat the seeds to address, I guess, that adoption issue with farmers. They just get the treated seed, don't have to change any practice, so it limits that barrier for adoption.
Yeah, brilliant. And so I think it, it's needless to say, we're, in terms of the Landcare movement, we're all trying to, I suppose, make improvements to the environment and the land and water that we're operating on. So, technologies that are available to us to do that, it is a form of adoption, and the actual usage of that, and I've been privy to a lot of farmer surveys of adoption, and there's not much adoption, but the biggest piece of technology I sort of see being used is just the mobile phone. The amount of apps that are available on those stores to identify pests, weeds, to link up with your drone to identify biodiversity issues, and I think that's that's sort of a really evolving space. Just that transition from from analog to digital has been quite transformative for our region, and sharing, I suppose, challenges and how that goes. But in terms of viticulture, what have you sort of seen, Anna, in terms of the best technology that you've seen come in to change viticulture and increase yield, or is it a combination of things, or how do you sort of see that?
I think in terms of the best technology that's happened in the past, probably a lot of it's been in the processing, and that's improved the quality of wine dramatically in the last 30 years. In terms of viticulture, it's been just the advent of more advanced farming methods. But what I think is the most exciting is what I see coming in the future. I see this kind of intercept between ag tech and AI to create enormous opportunities for our industry and probably other farming industries as well. I spoke about the amount of data that we're capturing already fairly easily, just in sensors and on existing equipment. I see an opportunity for us in the future to be able to put together multiple data sets. And, you know, like at the moment we're using AI for things like typing in questions like, been given 24 hours notice that I've got to talk on a panel about ag-tech. Don't even know how to say it. What should I say? But I think in the future we're actually going to be able to bring together more like meaningful data sets specific to something a bit more technical, like an individual industry, and be able to ask questions like, you know, will I make more money if I do this today? And I think that's what's really going to revolutionise agriculture and our industry.
Yeah, it's incredible. I mean, last week there's a lot of activity on the news and on social media, and and it was quite extraordinary, that coverage. But a lot of people missed, and I'm not sure if people picked up on it last week. But in a couple of news snippets, the Albanian Prime Minister actually appointed the first AI bot to their cabinet. So they've actually got an AI bot representing public procurement called Diella, actually appointed to Parliament at Albania. So, this is coming, and it's coming, and it's you can hear the thundering hooves of AI, sort of galloping towards us. So in charge of 2.7 million people, it's all in a chatbot and AI. So I think, in terms of revolutionising what we do, it's only small steps. In terms of future, what, Andy, what do you sort of think is happening? But before that, I'd like you to answer the question: what are your challenges to scale? For Grovia, what are your challenges to scale? Is it partnerships? Is it advocacy? Is it common language? Where do you sit with that?
I was just about to dive into the AI hole there, but I'll refrain for the moment. The biggest challenges for scale, I suppose, the opportunity. It was, I think, you mentioned the ag tech and envirotech, and there is so many different technologies out there to do the same thing or different things, and sometimes it's a bit paralysis of analysis. Which one should I use? And I think a lot of farmers that we speak to is they have lots of apps on their phone, but they might use one. I think, and I'm speaking in an Australian context now. I think Australia has some amazing technologies, and we have world-leading science. I think if we could form partnerships and collaborations between each of these silos techs, we would have something that would be globally groundbreaking. So you mentioned partnerships. I think collaboration is key. How do we bring together combined strengths to make something even better? One example is, and I'll announce it today, is that Grovia and Landcare are now have just formed a partnership to be able to facilitate participation in the environmental market, so specifically into environmental planting. And we are very much targeting or focusing on the landowner. So I mentioned before, we're a landowner centric platform. We are together bringing, I suppose, two different parts of the puzzle. And you mentioned challenges before. Challenges for us would be complexity and trust. Well, using technology, using AI, using machine learning, deep learning, we're able to simplify the complexities of engaging and participating in a market, such as carbon, biodiversity, NRM in the future. But partnering with Landcare, that brings a trusted network of community to be able to roll technology out and facilitate its implementation and participation is equally super important. And plus, Landcare have been engaged in planting for decades and doing it really well at a large scale. So the combination of those two different facets, I think, is a great example of what partnership can deliver.
Yeah, absolutely. And Ange Hammond, I'm not sure if you're in the room, but she's in charge of our... can you stand up, Ange, please? Ange is part of our Landcare Sustainable Agricultural, and so Ange is responsible for delivering a few projects that she's rolling out. So if anyone wants to talk ag tech and reporting, please talk to Ange if you get a chance. But now we'll move back to the AI. It's so controversial, and I still can't believe I'm reading that about that appointment. But Daryl, you wanted to talk and delve into that a little bit, and then I'll come back to you, Andy.
Yeah, so our technology and the frequencies through our tech, we can deliver 50,000 different frequencies, and we deliver that over 9 different types of waveforms, and it can be any time duration from a nanosecond to a whole day. So there's billions of potential recipes that we could create. So we just won a grant through UNESCO and the International Research Council for AI. So next month, we're pumping through $400,000 worth of compute power to then understand the effect of our different frequencies, and we do a sweep and we're mapping that in tomatoes. So then we can actually test the genetic up and down regulation of gene expression, epigenetic expression, then we're mapping that with all the public data sets we can get on tomatoes to really target what we're trying to do is increase the nutrient uptake efficiency by treating the seed. So we treat a kilo of seed using the power of an LED light for 5 to 10 minutes. So we can run that off solar panels. It's non-mutagenic, non-chemical, and totally sustainable. So the early data we've got from partnership with the universities is we're increasing the nitrogen uptake efficiency of those tomato plants by 10 to 25%. It's converting that into the leaves, so it's photosynthesizing better, and it's actually putting down 15 to 25% more carbon into the roots. So we've also got a canola project in the ground at the moment down the Riverine Plains. So we're starting to map that out with the use of AIs. Then how do we predict on the grow environment and the other data sets that you were talking about all going to come in to predict what recipe is going to be targeted for that grower variety and species for that grow environment.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, right. Well, that's and when you say recipes, that means the combination of frequencies you use to treat that seed. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Great. And Andy, so in terms of AI, will you be sort of appointing an AI bot to your advisory board anytime soon?
Quite possibly. I mean, Seed and Gravy have been involved with AI, machine learning, and deep learning for quite some time now, and you know they all play their part. But foundationally, we're talking about foundation, what we call LLMs, which is large language models. They're advancing at such a pace now that from the time we walked into the room to the time we leave the room, there'll be something that's more advanced and better than it was an hour ago. So we use specific types of AI in Grovia, specifically machine learning. So we'll take satellite data or different fidelity of data, whether that's spatial, whether it's multispectral or other types of sensors, married that with existing publicly available data sets, but also proprietary data sets, and we will interpret things in the landscape that we're seeing, which we can say are risks or opportunities. So a very quick example would be 20,000 acres on your farm. From that landscape, what would how many trees do you have on the farm? That's very easily done now with satellite remote sensing. We can get down to 15 centimeter pixel sizes, and we can classify a tree. We can classify a rock, a waterway, an ephemeral waterway, a fence, a car, a barn. Like there's so many different exclusions we can find that we can then use to assess at a very high level of accuracy what the opportunity exists for doing plantings, for example. The key is, and it's machine learning, is the machine's constantly learning. So the more you can facilitate data input, the more the accuracy at the other end becomes. So the more we engage in the space using technology, the better and better and better it becomes.
Yeah. So Anna, in terms of like the Landcare as the group and the organisation, technology is going to play more and more of a part going forward. Where do you see sort of collaboration? Do you think it's more forums like this where people can get an understanding of all the technologies available in terms of environmental techs, or is it a matter for communicating that on a website like Landcare? How do you think we should sort of move forward so that we can support all the landcarers with technology more?
Well, I think like the collaboration that we're doing with Grovia is a great example, and I think we just need to look outside our sectors. I mean, in our sector, we do a lot of cross-sectoral work, but we don't necessarily think to collaborate with other industries. And so, yeah, I think it's things like this, but potentially it's about people from the Landcare community going to a completely different type of conference, because, that we go to lots of, if you're in Landcare, you go to lots of Landcare conferences, but you might not go to an AgTech conference. I think in terms of the opportunity for Landcare I think it's enormous, and perhaps Landcare can learn from some of what's happening in ag, but it sounds like there's a lot of really smart solutions out there already. I like the idea of a future of Landcare where we can be much more targeted in things like pest and weed control potentially, but also being on the Native Veg Council, I see an opportunity to understand the extent of native vegetation and the quality of native vegetation much more easily, and monitor compliance even in a way that we've never been able to do before. So I think in terms of collaboration, it's just about thinking outside the box and getting out there.
Yeah, absolutely. Because we've got a great story to tell. All we need to do is to support it with more data and sort of make it from subjective to objective. And it definitely aids in what what you're offering, Andy. And that's quite important to sort of pull it all together with that verification. So if anyone's sort of got technologies that they use, it'd be great to somehow capture that from the audience to so we can share that around. If anyone's got any experience, I'd love to talk to you after the session. But I suppose in conclusion, we've got in our business we've got a few different businesses, and what we do and what I'd encourage people to do is sort of look at their businesses or their organisation or their Landcare group, and sort of just do a very simple analysis. What we do is we call it a what, where, how. And so you sit down for a strategy session, you go, okay, what technologies have we got at the moment in terms of environmental and ag tech? Where do we think we could be? So do a desktop review and ring around and sort of see what technologies you can employ to help you create efficiencies and more profitabilities. And then, and then how do you make step changes to get there? So it's sort of a what, where, how initiative, and that we use in business, and it sort of gets you to do a bit of a scan of the horizon and understand exactly, what's missing or what the possibilities are in your business. So, any sort of closing remarks from you guys before we go to questions at all, or?
And just to extend off that, I guess everyone's probably using large language models at the moment. I believe the challenge with that, those language models are all built off the English language. So I think there's going to be a profound effect where we'll have a step change jump again of what's coming in called large world models. So those large world models will take in all of those data sets and sense and potentially like link interactions between biodiversity and soil and everything like that. I see that's a huge opportunity for our country in putting forward, I guess, our 60,000 years of knowledge of how biodiversity and everything interlinks, and watch that and understand as we go into this changing environment where the ecosystems are all changing, how do we build on that knowledge to create our large world models? And that's an opportunity for this room. We should be building data centers in Australia to start compute power and create the best world models in the world to help all of these challenges here and understand that interaction.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And Andy, in terms of the next sort of horizon for your business, where do you see it going?
Well, firstly, I've got to say, Daryl's point is bang on. From where AI has been, it's been driven through Western culture, but we are now at a point where technology can play a part in integrating a large world model, integrating different cultures, different languages, and so on. So it's definitely the next step forward. We won't touch on AGI or anything else that comes after that, but that's coming as well. That's on the horizon.
It's AGI just developed.
So it's basically artificial general intelligence that basically takes. So if you think about Elon Musk and he's creating robots that are going to play a part in society, is doing tasks that you would typically do as a human. So robots with the ability to input data and output a process very, very quickly. So you could have in 5 years' time, you could have a robot that's a plumber, for example.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And it sounds very sci-fi, but it is literally on the horizon. It's coming.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which also raises a lot of questions around, social license of what does that do to communities? What does that do to jobs? How do we integrate it in a way that's going to be beneficial and not negative?
Yes, yeah, absolutely, which is a fine line, really. Yeah. And so in terms of Grovia, sort of where do you see your business sort of 5 years? Is still within Australia or expanding, or where are you sort of?
I'm obviously going to say expanding, but 5 years is a long time away when it comes to technology. It's advancing so fast, so I'm really focused at the moment on the next step, and that is 3, 6, 9 months time, 12 months time, and it's definitely the intersection between how I think markets can develop, and I'm saying agtech and envirotech. There's a convergence where they are going to be the same. And we've had it again in some of the talks this morning, some really good points around how we should weight and value nature behind the farm gate. It's an asset that sits on your balance sheet and is actually of value. And when we get to this point where the market is, you have your everyday agricultural operations married with nature integrated on farm being complementary, I think that advancement will dictate how technology advances, or will be shaped, not advanced, but it was shaped to service the market. But I will touch back on I suppose we consider ourselves, in the environmental market space, so very much environmental planting space, and it's carbon. I think the future is how that conversation changes away from carbon, but to nature. And it's happening. I mean, it's already happening in other places of the world. Look at Europe. And it's coming here with the nature repair market and biodiversity. It's coming, and it will come. But when we get to that point, it's going to be a very different conversation.
And Andy, Daryl, when you consider your technologies and they're ready for market, what is the appetite? When you provide those, is there a lot of training involved, or are people ready?
No, I mean we're working now. Grovey is an available product, and people are paying for it. It's out there, but it's constantly changing. Speaking openly as a founder and a leader in our company, we always have to find the line between how much we focus on development of new technology versus what's ready now for market. And I think that's been something that I've learned from doing it the wrong way to doing it the right way. When we started developing Grovey, and that was, I said before, was a spin-off from Mercy Technologies, we were very focused on making sure that the products that we built today, the rubber hit the road at the right time for the market to accept it and adopt it. Because technologists like to develop really cool stuff. But if you develop really cool stuff that the market's not ready for, you're going to have really good technology, but you're not going to have a business. So we need to make sure that we do manage the speeds of the way that we develop the tech, and make sure that the adoption, the industry, the network, the community is ready to adopt it at that time.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we on our farm, we utilise a fair bit of technology. One is water monitoring and telemetry systems. So I did the numbers the other day. It's saved us about 2,500 kilometres a year in travel, just having that monitor, being able to access it and see, see what the water level's up to. I've checked it twice today, and I got an alert. So I've got somebody out there checking it. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's a great example. One of the things that we've definitely seen, and I mentioned before about having different amazing technologies that are siloed in different parts of the same industry. Having that interconnectivity, that interoperability between all of those technologies is super important. So Grovey is designed to be end-to-end solution for helping a farmer or landowner to engage in environmental planting projects at the moment. That's useful as a feasibility tool. So you can come onto our platform, you can do a high level or deep dive into the feasibility of actually engaging in a project. What's the yield? What's the risk? How much is it going to cost me? All of those things. And we get it to the point of we call it compliance ready or registration ready. At that point, if we were to stop, then you have to take all that information and figure out how do you go about designing a planting project? How do I know that specific seedling or that seed needs to go in that position in the landscape? So how do you bridge the gap between basically DD, due diligence and feasibility, through to actual establishment? So that bridge is the key things that we're trying to solve for. So we can bridge between feasibility, design, implementation, and then monitoring or MRV, whichever you want to call it.
Yeah, absolutely. And, and Daryl, you got any comments on that at all?
Yeah, like the challenge is that potential slow adoption. So AusVeg just put out a grower sentiment report last week. 35% of vegetable growers in Australia are looking to shut up operations this year. 62% are unprofitable. High input costs are just really knocking that around. And if you kind of look at that, I guess, from us getting food and feeding our families, if we get another 25% price rise in our vegetables, it's going to be confounding. So we need these new profitable solutions to producers really quick. So we have to address that adoption issue, and we have to address that, probably not going too deep in the tech and make it usable. So I guess that's what we focused on. So we've got a trial going in India in October. So India is probably the lowest seed cost market in the world. Australia is one of the highest. Our margins stack up for Indian producers because we've got a very, very low input cost, and we can improve that ROI. So I think that's where I guess a lot of ag tech and sustainable tech really need to concentrate on ease of adoption, how it gets an ROI, and then that's going to bring the scale and potentially, and then also take it globally as well. So we've got quite a few trials going in Singapore, Netherlands, and Canada at the end of the year as well.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, that's a huge success. I think your companies will be ones to watch, and so we'll definitely be watching with bated interest. And Anna, I suppose in terms of the wine industry and viticulture, is there any sort of technologies for hangovers or anything like that for the next day, or? But no.
There are some things that are alleged to help with some of the byproducts of alcohol. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
We'll get into that later. I'll slip you some before tomorrow night.
Okay. Yeah. Sounds good. So thanks very much, panelists. I think we might pass back over to a few questions and see if we can answer a few for the audience. Thanks very much.
So, panel, there's a few questions that have come through. Microphone on. That'll work better. So the first one is we've seen and spoken about building trust with one another today. How do you build trust with AI? Good question.
I can take the first stab at it if you like. I'll go first. It's a really good question, and I'll answer it in a way that talks about the mechanics. So AI or neural networks, the way that AI processes data is mimicked on the human brain. So, if you're learning, you're in school, you're in academia, you have the ability to rationalize and process information to come up with a conclusion. AI, the mechanics of the way that it processes data is similar to the brain, but we don't really know what's happening inside. To be honest, we don't really know what happens inside the human brain either. So the output still has to be vetted. And an example would be, and we'll talk about this from a Grovy's perspective, the work that we deploy through using AI gets us to a level of efficiency that is far superior than you can do using human power. And an example would be 20,000 hectares of land assessment we can do in a matter of minutes compared to a team of GIS specialists taking weeks to do. Does that mean that we believe gospelly what that output is? No. You have to vet the output, and it's the more data you put in, the more vetting you do, the better the accuracy and the better the model. So it's sort of the more we use it, the better it will become. But we have to use it to make it better.
Would you like to handle that question, Anna or Daryl?
There's ways of structuring, I guess, in what we're doing. You know, we're putting 200 terabytes of data into Crunch into databases in the next month to work on how we create a better recipe for our targeted results to improve nutrient uptake efficiency in different species. But we're not putting in our private proprietary data of our recipes and frequencies into the AI. We have our own like separate models. So there's ways of structuring it to use it as a tool and then have layers and layers and layers to kind of vet that and then kind of use multiple different models and not give away the secret sauce. So I think there's a way of using it as a tool to kind of trust it a fair bit more, but not trust it 100% completely and give it everything.
I love your use of the word recipe. I feel like I'm at an episode of MasterChef. And, you know, I want to jump in the machine and see what will happen if I go in. A bit more nitrogen, grow a bit more hair. We've got a pretty concise one here. What can tech mean for Landcare and Landcare volunteers in the future, in the next 10 years? Thanks for that.
I just think it's coverage of more land and more more resources. I think we can it'll enable us to be able to make more decisions over a lot bigger area to improve the performance of it and the state of it. I think it's something we should definitely have in our armour to go forward, because if we can accelerate what we're doing, I think it's quite I think it's quite a great possibility to use. But I think it's about coordinating and communicating, the best ways and experiences within everyone to vet, which technologies are working. And you soon find that out. Word of mouth is the best enabler for technology adoption, especially in farming. And I'd suggest the same in the environmental space. So that I think it's very positive, but you've got to use the right technology.
Next question here, to Grovia and Rainstock Tech, how does the average landholder and individual access and afford this?
So we have, basically, if you're an individual landowner, you can, firstly, I recommend everybody goes to our website, which is grovia.earth, and on there's actually a tool called Snapshot, which is a super high level sort of analysis of your land that tells you what opportunities exist, both from a carbon perspective, but also from a co-benefits perspective. If that strikes interest and there's something of value, then you can go through into subscribing to the Grovia platform, which allows you to do a deeper dive. And that's, I think the individual landowner is $92 a month to be able to do that. So it's relatively low cost for the return that you get. And then we have different facets along the way that allows you to, if, for example, you've analyzed, you've built your scenarios, you're a farmer and you've got, you're running livestock and you want to integrate a biodiverse planting, whether that's a shelter belt or other types of plantings, you can build those scenarios in there. And then once you're ready to get down to the point of, I'm going to register a project, you can do a much higher level of comprehensive DD using what we call our Pro assessment, which you just pay as a one-off fee. And that's around $3,500. That is as expensive as it gets, which is quite a significant reduction in the prices of using a third-party professional services body that might charge you $40,000 to do the same level of diligence. So we're trying to remove the barriers for small-scale to large-scale farmers to engage in environmental markets.
Just for us, we're starting in horticulture. So I'll give an example, I guess, with leafy green growers in protected cropping. So there's about 1 million seeds in a kilo of lettuce. And I said at the start, we can treat that 1 million seeds using the power of 6-watt feed for an LED light for like less than 10 minutes. So what we're targeting there is increasing metabolism of that, so they're growing quicker. So it's getting to retail height and weight 15% quicker. So that 1 kilo of seed is putting a benefit to that grower of $95,000. At this stage, we're looking at charging to treat that kilo of seed of $350. And then currently, we're over the next couple of years, we've got trials going outdoors with tomatoes and canola, going into some other broadacre crops. So over the next few years, we'll be developing machines that can treat a ton of seed in a day. And the input cost actually dramatically drops down even further than treating the 1 kilo of the electricity, and that's our only input cost. So I guess we're just making it very easy, and we aim to build trust with our growers. So all of our leafy green growers, we give them 6 lots of treated seed to grow 6 crops in their system to show that it works in their system before we'll like sign them up to be able to buy treated seed off us.
So this one, I'm sorry, one of the things about this tech is I don't get to run around and meet you. But anyway, that's another AI question mark. How do you balance the environmental impact of generative AI or bots? How do you balance the environmental impact of generative AI?
You're talking about the huge amount of energy
Yeah.
that they use.
I think I'm speaking for someone, and water, and time, and resources. Oh, I've gone analog on everyone now. They're just screaming their questions.
I've
set
can
them
have a
free.
crack at it.
It's like-
I think
And to be fair, I don't think we're advocating for it so much, just saying it's coming, and it's out there. So it'd be good to be aware of what the capabilities are and aren't.
I think overall, if you look at, I can't quote stats, but if you look at the amount of energy and water it uses, you have to look at that in the context of the amount of energy and water it can potentially help us to save before you make that assumption that it's going to be, not beneficial for the environment.
Yeah, and I think that goes with every technology, cost-benefit analysis. You have to, do a comprehensive review of what technology you're going to employ in your business or organisation, and then make a decision on that. I don't think it's, just because it's available, you adopt it. So you got to be quite wise about it and vet, as we've been saying. But yeah, certainly you just got to be aware of what's available, and what others are using and how they're achieving. So benchmarking and discussions, maybe at Smoko afternoon tea is, quite critical to just see what other people are doing.
And I think, I'm glad I poked the tigers a little bit there, because, this is what the conference is about. It's about stepping and hearing things that, generally you react because you don't know, and you don't know, so you're a bit fearful of something. So, thank you for sitting on the panel and setting these conversations in motion, and definitely speak to our panellists afterwards at afternoon tea. And it's not about allaying the fears, it's about just getting information. And that's why we're here for the next day and a half and 2 days. So that's a really, I think, do you have any final, do you want to make a final closing statement from each of you, and then we'll move on, or are you happy?
Yeah, I think, from my point of view, there's different sort of parallels, and one is, I was talking to somebody today that doesn't want any technology or any machines on their farm. It's a smaller block, and they just want to just do nature as it intends, with very minimal input. And so, that's commendable. And, but when you're trying to repair something, it might be a different case. So I'd just do a bit of a, like a review across, every option, and just see what suits you. And, just as long as it's benefiting, land and soil and water, I think that's where we all have a combined interest to improve it together. And whatever enables that and suits your use case, I think definitely consider it and move forward, because we need to improve with an extra 50 million every year in perpetuity people. We need to make the right decisions for every aspect of land, people, and agriculture. So that'd be my closing statements. Guys, would you like to add to that at all?
Yeah, I think we heard earlier in the day about the major global issues of climate, biodiversity, and food security. And I think if we're going to be able to tackle these holistically at a planetary level, then we have to be more precise with our agriculture. So precision agriculture supported by AgTech is inevitably a tool that we need to embrace for that reason. But from an individual business level as well, like we're seeing globally that markets are so much more interested in this stuff now, like sustainability, being able to show contribution to the environment through not just reducing our use of resources, but through giving back, whether it be through like corporate philanthropy for the environment. So we're going to have to do this stuff, and we're also going to have to be able to measure and demonstrate to our if we want to be able to stay in the market.
I'll probably finish just by saying technology is an enabler, and it's as we advance more into envirotech and agtech, the importance of being able to baseline and measure positive environmental impact is going to become more stringent, and technology can play a part in doing that, for example. But ultimately, we need the model to be able to use the technology in the right way. And what I mean by that is, how do we move forward with this intersection of environmental markets, nature markets, moving carbon to a nature conversation? If we get that right and we use technology in the right way, then we're solving multiple goals at the same time.
Just for me, I guess Rain6 inspired by my ancestors and our traditional knowledge system. I totally believe that we've got so much traditional knowledge in this country that's been not utilised, and we can do it in a collaborative way. So we have a special class shareholder in Rainstick that is to the Marawali Foundation that can never get diluted, that acknowledges our Indigenous cultural IP. And I kind of share our shareholder agreement, all our constitution with any other people, traditional owners that want to go down that road, because I think that's very important. I think it's a huge opportunity, again, in like large world models and other tech, how we can get that traditional knowledge to help us shape to address these challenges and move forward. And I think it's a huge opportunity for our country.
Thank you. Well, on that note, James, thank you for hosting a wonderful panel. Can you please thank Andrew, Daryl, Anne, and James? And big thanks to Anne, who joined the panel at the third hour, if not less, after someone couldn't make it. So thanks for joining in, Anne. Well, that brings us to our next break. But I was thinking about something you said. Somewhere between the figure of 5,000 and 15,000 people were born in the space of that panel. Somewhere. Someone said, I did a few stats while I was looking. It wasn't AI, it was just a search engine, but it was kind of the same thing. And anyway, somewhere between that number of people were born while we were sitting in here. And then when you said that there's so many companies that are going under when it comes to food production, if those people have to be fed, that food has to come from the land. Like, it's so interconnected, it's quite incredible when we think about those basic statistics and those numbers. So thank you for sharing those, James, and for putting them into a bit of a context, and it's something for us to think about when we ponder that many people were born in the space of this panel discussion. We're now going to go to morning tea or afternoon tea, however you feel, whatever alignment you're in for. I don't know where and how you identify, but if you're feeling morning, it's morning. if you're feeling afternoon, it's afternoon. I'm pretty loose on those facts. Now, nothing's changed upstairs. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We'll be rocking it out again right through until later this afternoon when we reconvene in here for our final panel, and then we'll have our post-conference session here. So go and have a cuppa and head up. Give yourself time to get upstairs to your sessions, and I'll see you in a little while.